Okay, we are going to start. I introduce myself for those who still don't know me and Junction. I am Biyaheng. I am the founder and director of Junction, and Junction is the venue where you are in. Basically, we focus on Southeast Asia. We try to bring all kinds of issues, social, economic, political issues, to a general public. This is why we are inside the Bangkok Arts and Culture Center, which is one of the main place for the general public to come and learn about art, culture, and other issues. Today we are very privileged to have here an old friend. Actually, I should move a little bit. An old friend, Toym. I know him quite sometimes since I think the end of the 90s. I was lucky to be in Manila for 2 years, and I worked with his wife, Rizali, at the Ford Foundation at the time. Rizali is also there, so I am thankful to Rizali also for, among other things, besides being a fantastic colleague, also for introducing me to Toym. And already long time I have tried to convince him to come to Bangkok and do this exhibition, but he's very busy, as his friend very well know. But finally we managed at the last moment, we did manage to have a fantastic mural composed of 5 pieces of 20 feet each, so in total 100 feet of art, describing the 75 years of human rights, or better, human rights abuses in the Philippines. And this is not only the work of Toym, but also of another colleague, Kevin. I had the pleasure to meet him, and he's very famous, it seems, as a cartoonist in the sea, has many followers. So we are very proud to have him here also with us. And then another old friend. This is the privilege of age, to have many friends, and all very experienced friends. Sally Berry, who is an expert on human rights. She's teaching associate professor at the Faculty of Human Rights in Mahidol University, but she is also an expert in the Philippines. She will tell us more, she can introduce later. So I will start with Sally first to give a kind of quick, not really an overview, but just a thought about human rights, Philippines, art. And then we will go to the two artists, and then we will have some question and answer before doing a tour of the exhibition accompanied by the artists. As you can see, there are a lot of interesting design. It's full of part, and we need to understand what these parts are, because they're all essential elements. Oh, Kun Basan, please, here in front we have the master of political art in Thailand. Please come to the front. Yeah, please. You can see Kun Basan is very famous artist in Thailand with political art. So I invited him, and I am grateful he came here to be with us today. So without further ado, please, I will give the first. I always misspell her name.
No, it's Latin. Yeah, you're Latin. Well, thank you very much, Leah. Thanks to everyone for coming today, and it's a great privilege, very exciting to be sitting here with these artists and seeing their fruits of their work, collaborative, and I gather it has a potential in the future to continue if we were able to move it elsewhere. So it sounds like a very dynamic set of ideas that we are fortunate to get to sort of see now. When Leah asked me to come and talk, and I had asked her a number of times about the title, because the emphasis would change a little, but the 75 years part I kept tripping up over. 75 years, and I'm supposed to have 10 minutes, or naturally less. That's not a problem for me. Keep it very short. But I was a little preoccupied with 75 years, and so I thought I will dispense with that quickly, and then go to a bit, just brief thoughts, precisely as Lena said. So very briefly, Philippines is my first home in Southeast Asia by virtue of years spent there during the dissertation time. Life has brought me here to Thailand and then onward into human rights studies. So that's it in brief. The 75 years does seem to me, right now, of course, with everything, with the war, the war going on in Gaza, it is a particularly challenging time to think about commemorating or honoring a document whose very validity seems so up for grabs and certainly being reconsidered in this context. When we shift to the Philippines, of course, we see that as in much of the global South, yes, the 75-year marker has validity, but probably only in fairly limited circles, because it is a truth that throughout much of the global South, the histories of rights are continuing to be written, and they're written out of national and local contexts and experiences and landscapes. So in that regard, the role that the UDHR plays is a very much changing one, and not one that may be the most salient, the most important part of what people would think when they consider human rights or said human rights abuses in the Philippines for many, many decades. So sometimes, of course, human rights principles found very fertile ground in the Philippines. It had membership, actively so, in the centers of the forging of the UN, including at the drafting of the UDHR. There was, in very brief, I'll try to touch on some important historical junctures, just assuming that we don't all necessarily have a shared appreciation for this history. So after World War II, when the Philippines achieved independence from its American colonizers, there were already existing tensions between what the possible futures might hold for a country where its oligarchy was never dismantled, land reforms were never forced, as they were in other countries of Asia, at the behest of the US, Japan, Korea, that really did help to set the course of the possibilities of democratic development in the subsequent decades. So the Philippines entered its independence with a promise of democracy and an extraordinarily rich educational system, a very lively press, and a flourishing of arts, visual, literary, etc. So a lot of promise at the same time as many of the tracks were being laid throughout the 1950s and 60s for what would become the more horrific decades in the 70s and 80s of these human rights abuses. So again, it has its unique story, but it also shares a great deal with other countries in the global South of entering with this post-World War II time with great promise, but with very mixed legacy of the colonial era and very different kinds of resources to build on and go forward on so many different fronts that were so commanding and feeling urgent at the same time. So social and cultural development and political development and economic and agricultural, et cetera, et cetera. So into the 1960s emerges this very charismatic figure claiming a place on the national stage with his equally commanding visual presence of a wife, Ferdinand and Isabel Marcos. There is, again, initially a promise of that this couple and this leader has a vision and will be able to take the Philippines forward. At that point, it's still a country that within Southeast Asia certainly is looked up to for its relative freedoms and possibilities. But in a short version, that the mural will be able to depict far better than I can right now. That promise was revoked, and of the 19 years that Marcos ruled, 9 of which were formally under martial law, and in fact, arguably much longer into the end of his regime. So it's in that context then that's the crucible in which human rights movements really take form out of necessity and out of resistance. At the end of that, in 1986, a contested election takes place between him and another famous old family representative, Corazon Aquino, and a people power movement floods the streets of, I almost said Bangkok. It tells you how divided my loyalties are, but of Manila. And many, there was still it was a very, again, a time of great promise and very competing strains within the country. But it's fair to say, I think, that most people at that time would have felt, well, the Philippines has earned its place on the global stage as a defender of human rights, succeeding in toppling this militarily supported, repressive, authoritarian regime. Now we can really get back to the business of building on so many other fronts. And lo and behold, as again, parallels all around the globe, the great disappointments and the great pushbacks with which the 1990s and the 2000s are faced with a subsequent any number of different national governments that begin to have an effect such that things become even more fragmented in the Philippines, and the legacies, let's say, of the human rights, that sort of heyday of a more unified vision of human rights, that legacy is more fragmented, and subsequently, again, in a story very familiar to people in Thailand in a different register, arguments are made for why democracy, we must have shortcuts in democracy, we have to curtail it in order to tend to more important business. We have lots of parallels in the 2000s that bring us to setting the stage for arguably the most notorious in a human rights lens regime of late and on the global stage, which was the government of Rodrigo Duterte, who took power in 2016. If people know anything about him aside from the bluster and the persona that's ready to challenge anyone, it was that in the name of a drug war, in the name of saving the Philippines from the scourge of flow of drugs and drug addiction, he was going to set things right. And if that meant killing people, if that meant lives were lost, well, so be it. That was the price you paid for this kind of progress, for this necessary actions that will keep the Philippines safe. Horrific abuses, assassinations, corruption on other fronts that were unsurprisingly perhaps, the consequences of this kind of a leader who gave himself really a writ of, he was above all manner of accountability and ruled more or less with impunity and with a microphone always narrating what he was doing and as many cameras as he could have to show the world, to show everyone. Alas, the perversions of history being what they are, the Marcos family has been able to begin to restore itself by claiming another presidency that is the Ferdinand Marcos Jr. So presidency in last year, 2022, with Duterte's presumed heir apparent and equally charismatic in a complicated and both notorious and popular aspects, Sara Duterte, who looks possibly like the person who will carry the flag, maybe not, hope not, in a next direction. So we are talking about then a very challenging history. I don't know if it's a road to hell. I'm going to go back now and leave things very soon on whether it's a road to hell or not. I'm not sure. Or hell on wheels. I will say, on a more humorous note, anyone who did ride the jeepneys on Manila will appreciate that the hell on wheels of the trip is not only political, it is absolutely the driving style of the jeepney driver. So I love the metaphor of it, that it is going to take us through, that is the metaphor of the mural, not to cut too far into your time, guys. But it is a wonderful metaphor, but it is a very fraught idea that there is that there would be single paths, and that there would be sort of one form of transport that would now carry forward this far more populous, far more divided country than the one that certainly, as I say, people might have imagined some years ago would have carried this rights legacy. So 75 years, I did that less than 10 minutes, more or less. But thanks, and looking forward to it.
Thank you very much. And you gave very effectively exactly the contrast which now we will hear more, which is in the title, between promises of heaven and reality of hell for the people of the Philippines, particularly the marginalized group. But we will hear now from the two artists exactly what they wanted to say with the artwork. You have 10 minutes each about, and then we will open the floor for the public. So who's going to start? Kevin, please.
All right. I'm a bit nervous. All right. So I'm Kevin Raymundo. I'm more popularly known in the Philippines as Tarantado Kalbo. It's roughly translated to irreverent baldy or cheeky baldy. So it's like a mix of, it's a play on words. So I'm bald, obviously, and I'm kind of mischievous with my comic artworks. So I started 4 years ago. It wasn't political at that time. So it's more of like slice of life and just random, funny comics, disposable, but not necessarily disposable, but simple. So I started to turn into more political or satirical works during the pandemic of 2020. Right? So to give additional context, the Philippines kind of mishandled how they have to give the vaccines, or how they handle, they imposed it more of a militaristic style of handling the pandemic. So that time, I was kind of pissed because we're all trapped in our own houses because of the lockdown. They imposed the strict lockdown. And then that's when I started to call out the government through my works. So I started drawing then President Duterte in his mumbling speeches, because he used to air this nightly talk. That is the simplest way you can put it, because I couldn't understand what he was talking about. So I was really pissed. And then I started to create more of that. And then that led to where TK or Tarantalong Calgon is now. So this mural is actually for me a culmination of all the work that I've done. So I'm very grateful for my friend here, Toym, for inviting me to join. It was really intimidating because when he offered me to paint with him, he said, you do what you do. It's up to me. So that level of trust is a bit intimidating or overwhelming. So the theme of the mural is actually a timeline from 1948 to the present time. So if you see later, there's a question mark by the end of the mural. So it's a hanging ending. So we don't know if where the road will lead us next. Right? So the style that I added to the mural, Toym created the backdrop of the painting. So his style was more traditional painting. So he depicted the presidents. And then how I add my own style, because I'm younger, I'm a millennial. I wouldn't say him. It's more like more modern. Alright, so it's that contrast between the old guards and the new guards. So, well, it complements each other. But you can see the contrast of how I overlay the additional info of the human rights violations. And I focused mainly on the timeline of Duterte because that was the period where I was like awakened. My political stance was awakened. So if you're not familiar, I'm also the creator of the Tumindig artwork, the fist that has become a movement in the Philippines. When I started it, it was born out of frustration. So I felt at that time that nothing is happening. Like no one's doing anything to counter what Duterte was doing, killing all these people. And his traditional symbol was the fist bump. So he always used that fist bump during his speeches, and his loyal followers would follow suit. So they all created a fist bump. And Tumindig is sort of like a counter to that. So when you see the fist bump, it looks like your fist. If you see it, if you humanize it, it's like laying down. So it's bowing, yes. So with the Tumindig, it's an anthropomorphic figure of a fist that is rising up, standing up. So Tumindig also means standing up. Alright. So when I created that, I posted it. It kind of went viral for a bit, and then slowly died down. And then the artists started to create their own avatars and add their version of the Tumindig into the artwork. And it sort of snowballed into this huge movement that even I, up to now, was not prepared for. So I kind of had to rise to the occasion of what my work has, the effect of it in the people. So I directed them to register to vote, like for example, Tumindig to register to vote. And then when the elections came, I directed them to who was the right candidate for me. So that was Lenny. And then we lost, unfortunately. So yeah, we did not lose. We did not lose. But after that, I couldn't stop the movement. But I had to consciously direct it in a way that would be in line with my principles. So I joined various NGOs and organizations that are connected to human rights, and also for the farmers as well, because most of the population in the Philippines are composed mainly of farmers. We are an agricultural country, but unfortunately, it doesn't work. Like they're forcing it to be more of a outsourcing industry. Right. So that's it.
Okay, now to the old guard.
I thought that was over already. Okay, yes, good afternoon. Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you, Leah, for inviting us over. Yes, it was a promise that eventually we were able to fulfill late this year. I'm very happy that several of our friends from Manila flew all the way here to be with us, to be with me and Kevin, our family, with Junction, to view the mural for the first time in one exhibition. Thank you to those friends, fellow artists, curators, and some new friends that we met just here, who dropped by, happens to have came across the mural just today, and have seen that this is a narrative about their own country, being shared in a foreign land. I think what Kevin has been saying is that we found ourselves suddenly in the front lines. There was a period of time in 2021 that we were in the Rappler office. We were then a group of artists meeting up with a group of journalists and finding common grounds on how to address the issues that were confronting the nation amidst a pandemic. And soon to be, at that time, Maria Ressa was there. We have given this journalist a sort of a creative gift and honor among the artist friends of ours. And I remember saying this as a promise also to those journalists who are sharing the fight towards telling the truth. Truth saying has been challenged for quite some time during the Duterte administration. That was plagued by historical revisionism and fake news through social media in particular. I remember saying this, and to that group where all the journalists were when the truth is under siege and the press is pinned down by the state, the arts become our second line of defense, because it is so easy to twist words, but art, it takes a little more time and difficult to twist. That's why when I encountered Kevin's work during the time of the pandemic, I mean, this is one of the guys I want to be with in the front lines. Unfortunately, when they were going after the journalists, and you've heard about Maria Ressa's journey, being plagued by several lawsuits, and at the same time, that was a period where the biggest network in the Philippines, when you need news, to inform people, a government shuts down the biggest media outfit in the Philippines, which was ABS-CBN. Then we were, that was really worrisome. Rodrigo Duterte used the pandemic as a guise, no, of addressing a medical emergency and flexing their authoritarian rule. So we needed to step in. No? The truth was under siege. No? The journalists were under siege. And it's time for the artists to step in and be with them in the front lines. So I was a big fan of Kevin's work. You know, when it came out, me and my wife were like really very invested in what comes out. What's wonderful about social media is that despite it being played by the big players, of troll armies, it has also democratized the access to content produced by artists like Kevin, who uses humor, mockery, and satire to introduce issues to the people, without necessarily scaling them with big concepts, encapsulating them in a way in which the Filipinos most likely would be able to relate to. We are a country that is continuously plagued by both natural and man-made disasters, unfortunately. And humor has always been a very effective coping mechanism, for a lot. And sometimes it's in humor that we find the truth, without necessarily being literal about it. We laugh, at the dark period. And that's why the mural that we created here, I created the historical background. And of course, when I was creating the initial study of this, I had Kevin in mind already, because I talked to him and his wife Dara here very early in the year, that we wanted to work together. And you'd see that it's very colorful. Actually, just earlier this morning, we would see like students having this as an Instagrammable opportunity, because it's a very colorful background. And I've heard that one of the viewers was quite knowledgeable about it. Do you know what your background is all about? But of course, this is like very colorful. It's like you have a very colorful history, despite its very dark and painful past. Despots, dictators, have a way of, especially in the most recent times, have a way of really coming up with something that's attractive, that's bravado, that's colorful, that would carry cope the more sinister moves by authorities in our country. So where do we find ourselves now? We find that the artists have taken to the fight, and when it's the satirists, the humorists right now are the truth sayers also, along with journalists. It's funny that we had to be in this way, after experiencing in particular, during my younger years, the Marcos dictatorship. Of course, that's admit that he's younger. But I think what's important right now is not that I've been in this game for a very long time. Maybe Kevin here was still playing with his Nintendo game console, but I've been here with this for a long time. But I cannot say that my work has more weight than what Kevin has been doing in the past 4 years. It doesn't have a measure of time. When you take up this fight, you may be in it for just a week, maybe a month, a year, a decade. But what's important is that when the time comes that we need to speak out, we need to articulate these truths in various forms, so that people in the future, generations in the future, may be able to mine this information, especially even digital footprint, like what Kevin has been doing online, more actively, engagement. We are able to balance out the garbage that has been churned out by these troll factories. And me and Kevin have been we've grown to be accustomed to this attack. See, more than me, online, for troll army. We've been like, given death threats. We've been given, all the possible colorful words that can come out in one's vocabulary. But we continue and persist to tell what needed to be, even for the threat of life. That's what we do. And we're happy. We're happy that there are a lot of us who are sharing this fight, sharing this struggle. It's hard. So for artists like us, it's so easy that we can just do work that hangs in a gallery, sell, quietly get our payment, and enjoy life. But I think that's not who we are. I mean, we firmly believe that our art is a language that is meant to tell the truth and have a purpose in society. We are not holy men to be revered and respected because we do good art, but we do the right art that is needed for the time of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Toym. And okay, I open the floor for question and answer or comments. Also about, we have artists from Myanmar, Thailand, and other places. So I think we've been interesting also to hear about voices and the challenge of being a political artist these days in different countries in Southeast Asia, but more generally, please, also about the mural. We have not heard much yet, so you can say maybe also more later on. Okay, who wants to start? Something?
Don't be shy.
Don't be shy. Okay, courageous woman. Always the woman are more
Alright. Hi, congratulations. Maybe I'm from the Philippines and Maggie. Maybe I have to say that in the Philippines, there are thought balloons of all artists that we cannot say out in the open, and I appreciate that we're in another space. So I'd ask it straight to you. Because along with the long history of human rights violations, there's also a long history of artists being detained, tortured, even disappearing. So I want to know exactly how you have strategized your practices. Because I know that we all think about it, like we walk to work every day, thinking about what's happening and what we're gonna do. But at the same time, there's a little caution in the air, a lot of fear, but also a lot of anger. And I'm curious how you both deal with that.
Wait a moment. Let's see if there are other. Let's see if there are other questions. One or two. Okay, one in the back.
Hi, sir. Good evening. I'm also from the Philippines, and sadly we're leaving Bangkok in 2 days as we continue on our journey as a family to Australia. So I've just finished my PhD on mobility, and we've noticed that your theme is about jeepney, which is I think the most popular, the most common mode of transport in the Philippines. And this year, your exhibit in the Oblation of the University of the Philippines is also related to mobility. Why is that so? I'm not sure if this has been discussed because we came in late, but why is mobility, why are these modes of transport the themes that you have highlighted in your art, in this form of activism? Thank you.
Okay, any other? No, so please. Oh, sorry.
Hello, Thank you. Also from the Philippines. I love how you contrasted, journalism and art, and how you were saying that artists are the second line of defense in terms of truth saying. I wonder how you feel about, because art can also be subjective. It depends on how people view your art and how they interpret it. So in terms of truth saying, in terms of, again, like trying to tell people what's really going on, trying to enlighten people, how do you make your art in such a way that it's not going to be misinterpreted? Yeah.
Who wants to answer again?
I'll answer Abby. Alright, thank you for that question. When it comes to like preparing myself to handle like security reasons, because the topics that I show through my art are very controversial. Actually, when I first made the switch from being just a comic artist into a more political commentary, me and my wife had this talk that, like for example, security reasons in social media, we have to lock our personal accounts so they couldn't get to our photos and dox us. But unfortunately, it happened. We were doxed. So eventually, I made the decision to expose myself in public, because before I was kind of anonymous online. They just see a drawing of me. But after being doxed, I was advised to just be more present, be more visible. That way people know who I am. So when they do something to me, people would know, like I'm not just some anonymous person who was killed off in the streets. I would actually like to share one incident, because after the lockdown, so they opened the malls, and this is my first book signing in one of the malls. So I announced it on Facebook and Twitter, and then the mall manager contacted us and told us that there was a thread that they found on one of the comments. Like they would, how do you say this? Acid attack. They would throw acid to me, to my face. So they kind of tightened up the security of that event. Fortunately, it was a false alarm. But after that, we had to take more precautionary measures. Like every event that I go to, I bring water, first aid, and then we inform the security of the place to be more to tighten the security of my area. Yeah. So those are the things that we do to prevent such things from happening. But I know that's not enough. That wouldn't protect me 100%. So it's more of just you just have to go through it in spite of the fear. There's one comic strip that I did that roughly translates to "I don't want to live in fear." So in spite of all the threats, you just have to power through it. That's it.
Yes, I think we share the same strategy somehow. I was advised by a person who I deeply respect. He's part of foundation and much into the culture and the arts. And he told me that when I was being really attacked online, what the advice he gave me is that maximum exposure will protect you. Make people aware of what you do and who you are. Establish a network of friends, not only within your ranks of the progressive movement, but also in government. Do tactical alliances also. Introduce yourselves to these people. And that would somehow give you that people, the awareness of who you are. Of course, we cannot completely protect ourselves. I was like, our taxes not only in terms of us being, but we're attacked constantly, and I don't know. It's one of the besides being tagged as a drug addict by government or some of our citizenry, red tagging was another way of really eliminating dissent. Are those who oppose the government so easy, and I was tagged by the top red tagger of our government. I was thrown, saying, yeah, and this person happens to be formerly my friend. That's what's sad about it. And they came into power, they became a totally different person, supporting Rodrigo Duterte at that time. So the only way that we can actually protect ourselves is to continuously come out with word, continuously have our voice, so people are aware that we're still in circulation. But also in terms of your question regarding truth saying, yes, I mean, what's wonderful about art is that you do not have to spoon feed what you need to tell people. You need just to have those images as a portal for them to understand the issue, for them to act as an avatar for them for further inquiry. And it doesn't really preach much, but the imagery would give you somehow an idea of what needs to be told, what needs to be learned, what needs to be acted upon. And with regards to your question about mobility, yes, I mean, this year, I wanted to say something about the 75th anniversary of the Declaration of Human Rights, because the Philippines was part of the first signatories on the crafting through Carlos P. Romulo during that time, post-war Philippines. And it's for me, the one in UP Diliman, if you just search, Pailaw, UP Diliman, it's an annual thing that I do for UP. When I was asked to decorate the campus during Christmas, I didn't decorate for Christmas, okay? And I come from a family where both my mom was a devout Roman Catholic, my dad was Muslim. And I wanted to create, Pailaw means to light up in the Philippines. And I wanted that to be a platform for illumination, to address. And it happens to be the first time I was asked was the year before the elections of 2016, which voted Rodrigo Duterte into power. But we were having this really bad feeling that he will be getting the presidency. So it was a forum for me as a platform to warn the people. So I just created an entire plaza that was up in flames, so to speak. That was the first. And it became, to a certain level, people came there because it was a spectacle. It was lighted differently, without necessarily knowing what the issues we were discussing about. But that became a clickbait for them, an actual clickbait for them to go there. And when they were there, they would read what it was all about. Then, the second layer of trying to introduce the issue with a captured audience already, we were able to do that. So that's how powerful art is. I wanted to deal with the idea of like the one we use bicycles for UP Diliman, this swirling, an inverted triangle referencing to the inverted societal triangle in which we want to put the masses up there. It's basically people-powered movement. What we need in the Philippines right now is another people-powered movement. And the bicycle has become somehow of a visual metaphor for that. And with this work that I work with Kevin right now, it is a mural, and you have the jeepney. The jeepney shares the same timeline, no, with the years of development as the Declaration of Human Rights. The first known photograph of a Philippine jeepney was placed between 1947 to 1949. No? And it's an uncredited photograph of a World War II jeepney, a war veteran suddenly transforming into civilian use. No? And the jeepney has always been a good metaphor as a people's canvas, because people would always know that the driver or the operator would put his own personal narrative into the imagery that comes into the jeepney. And for us, it's also something related to the masses. It moves people from point A to point B, from one history to another, from one era to another. It is the common man's mobility. And it has become a very creative canvas in which people express, no, the sensibilities or the zeitgeist of the time. So that's why we chose the jeepney as the vehicle to convey the history, the vessel to contain the history of our challenges to democracy over the past 75 years, and of course to talk about the human rights issues. It's very colorful because we have a very colorful history, but at the same time we wanted to acknowledge that behind this colorful facade, no, which would draw you, and once you're drawn, you're taking that Instagram photo, you suddenly realize that you're at the back of the image of one of the, you know, one of the, we call it verdugo. What's verdugo in English? Executioner. No, Rodrigo Duterte's image at the back. But initially, you were drawn to those imagery. So that's what we're trying to do. Kevin and I are trying to come up with something that's palatable, that's an entry-level avatar, that's something that draws you, makes it personal, and at the same time, once you're there, you discover something else. And that's how we do it.
Okay, final round of question, comment before we go to do the tour of the murales, so I can explain more in detail. Hassan, you want to comment from your experience? Yes.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Yoru, invite me to know this. I know the Philippine artist from yesterday my friend died, and Elimino. And I know the Ottoman artist onward. So, and I when I'm young student, I study the Philippine farmer talk, speak, and I want to understand what happened. I understand Thai, Philippines, Indonesia, and Myanmar, the same. We are in the same hill. Like we are in the and Thailand, in the Thailand artist young people. Now young in 2-3 years ago, after pandemic. For the young artist very bad, because after the Lamarck, today he dead, the king died. So after that, everything is changing, everything is open, discovered. So the young generation, they know. I am here, demonstration 50 years ago, we are students. I'm still fighting because I think I want Thailand to be better. And I heard about Duterte. I heard about because my friend connection talking about they put the people in the jail and no jail enough for the people, the poor. And so I think, and we are farmer agriculture. Say, Thailand have fruitful. So why fighting? Because why? The very fruitful country, we can help. It's very big problem of our country. And so as an artist, so I really concerned with engagement with our social. So I demonstration with the poor people everywhere. Because why now when fighting in the south, fighting everywhere. Why? Because only the government or the man in power they want to take away everything from our country. They don't care. On monopoly. I think our Thailand is that we are born to be slave and market structure. And so I think as art we can do. So now, the young people, they use the head to attack the wall. And not brain. We have to use the brain. How many years they rule, and how many years they intercourse together between capitalists, monarchy, and the military. So long time. And so now we come back of Marcos again. And like the world not come to the loop, and the world on crazy. I think what's going on? What is going on for the people of the world? Philippines, Thailand, or everywhere. In Myanmar too. Many Myanmar exile. They don't do Facebook anymore because they come to attack you directly. I am so lucky at fighting, but in the past, Thailand, they don't understand that. Not because Americans and Indonesia in the Western, they know power of art, so they follow to control. But many artists, I heard many names in the modern art in Philippines. I had to participate in Japan in 30 years ago. Art in the 60 and 40, so I understand it happened because of the human rights, because the voice of freedom, the voice of the power of the people, it happened. I think that it's same in Thailand too. That is why now art is very important. Now I'm talking about the soft power. I said art is the soft power to fucking the superpower. And so I think artists can do the memory, very bad, not covers, not what is bad. You want to go to guillotine, or you want to go to hang them, or to kill him, attack you. And so you have to find a way to fight him. That is the other artist that in my experience.
Thank you. Anyone? Okay, next side.
Hi, very nice to meet you all, and it's a very eloquent presentations, and it really resonates with what I'm feeling as a Myanmar citizen, and also as an artist as well, which is focused on acting. So my only question is, it's a very beautiful relationship happening between the different generational artists collaborating together on the perspective of advocacy and activism. And I'm just wondering that maybe this is more like a questions, like regardless of like collaboration. So, in this kind of time that, because of different generational life that the political artists are also present in this room, I'm just wondering that these kind of repeated cycles of violence are happening again and again and again and again. And, even in like different generations, they feel like the war is at the war state. This is the end of the war. This is the most terrible time that we're going through. And every generation feels that we are also feeling the same way. But like each different generation working together with different generations, so it's also kind of like empower, give different kind of like, so this is how we go through it, how we cope with this, fight against, like this authoritative regime and injustice. And so this kind of empowerment between new generations is also needed. And this very beautiful thing, I think. And also I'm just wondering that maybe like, we also need to look beyond these boundaries of restriction in terms of a country. It's not just about Philippine things, it's not about Thailand things, it's not about Myanmar out there. You just have, because of all these like violence and aggression escalating, all the time, and art becoming very portable. But in terms of, what difference with other forms is like art can bring the empathy and, the trigger the empathy and the emotion in people, like, like very instantly. And also change the attitude instantly. So maybe like just figure out that maybe there should be more program of this kind of political artists from different from different country fighting their own respective authoritative regimes. There should be more collaboration about that. And are there any willingness to do that? And I'm just wondering about that. Yeah.
Right now, I think we're seeing we're seeing a time in the Philippines where the artists have really come together And I think this was catalyzed because, especially in most recent times, because of the 2022 national elections. It is surprising that the election will be remembered as a period of radical self-expression. It was a time when a lot of artists really got involved, created content that was matching the content being created by well-funded advertising agencies promoting these certain candidates, or even the algorithms that were created by like Cambridge Analytica. There was this production, this massive production of content by independent creators, independent artists that were meeting this head on, and they were going around. And it's because also I'm really a very open supporter of the presidential candidate, Lenny Robredo. I think she was very instrumental in getting these artists together across generations. We have seen that during this election period. I can confidently say that probably, if it's a scale, 9 out of 10 of the country's national artists have supported her, not only verbally, but they were there present, marching with us, the streets, supporting not the candidate, but the idea, the idea that we wanted our democratic freedoms, the protection of democratic principles be upheld. And you have really young artists who are first-time voters coming out in the streets, dressing the way they want to dress, creating all those paraphernalia, stickers, placards, that were communicating to their generation, emoticons, everything, using the language of the times. And that's something wonderful because right there and then for that brief period in 2022, we have seen this radical self-expression manifest itself into something like a popular movement. Together with Kevin's Tumindig avatar. They personalize that into something of their own narratives. And I think that gives you an idea of what kind of society we could have gotten if the right candidates were able to win, what kind of democratic space. But even though we did not win, I think we had their knees shaking, that these people can come together anytime, create critical mass to challenge them. And quite recently, that has manifested itself with current corruption being blatantly practiced by the current politicians. You've heard about, I don't know if you heard about the other countries here, about the confidential funds. It is part of the national budget that politicians are not required to divulge how they spend it. It's like 500 million pesos to a billion pesos, which roughly translates to around 100,000 US, I don't know. We have millions of dollars that are not accountable. They were asking for it. Congress came in to people, to commentaries, to cartoons, like what Kevin has been producing. The popular dissatisfaction and negation to this particular fund, controversial fund. Congress, which is controlled by the Marcoses, which is controlled by the Dutertes, suddenly took a 180-degree turn and dropped it. So you can see that we move as a people, we use the current platforms that we have, we can have a say in this government, whether we win or lose, we can.
Alright, so to answer this question, I think activism is not limited to one's own country's issues. Like for example, with the Tumindig movement, it actually reached certain countries like Taiwan, and it actually won the Good Design Award in Japan. So the most important thing for an artist who is doing political is to have empathy. Like for example, me, I also create I also created artwork statement pieces for what's happening right now in Gaza. So, and that's also attacked by not just by the local trolls, but worldwide, because the issue between Israel and Palestine is very divisive. So it is important as well to do extensive research when tackling sensitive topics like this, so that you have the right amount of conviction to not to brush away or to stand your ground on what is actually right, the right thing to do. So that's my take on how artists from various countries or in Asia can collaborate with each other. We have to be more aware, not just with the issues in our own country, but also our neighbors as well.
Yes, and actually tomorrow, Kevin and I are flying off to Mysore to meet up with artists from Myanmar and some Thai artists to have a dialogue of what probably we can share to each other in terms of our own personal experiences back home and finding common grounds and producing artworks or collaborations that can speak about the region more than individual countries.
Any more comment? No? So then, oh, there, yes, please.
Sorry, I'm from the Philippines. I'm Indian. Sorry, oops. My question is more on the transformative nature of political art. So I think one of the main, very important elements for it to be transformative, at least what's being discussed, is for it to be immersive. You know, there's a gap between art itself towards the community and the community, like the grassroots. Maybe there's a barrier somehow where these progressive art forms aren't able to penetrate most of the mediums that the masses are able to access. Like, for example, when we do, I don't know, maybe in our place, most observable things that it's limited to art circles, so certain communities only, but if it's a political form of art, the intent is supposed to reach more people, especially many people in the Philippines are in the poverty line, don't have access to galleries. Galleries aren't like this really. We have museums, but it's not that accessible. And so the question of accessibility comes to mind when it comes to the conversation between art and protest or politics. What can you say about it? In terms of the challenge of being accessible to
Alright, so in my own experience with how I show my art, because I started doing political work and sharing it for free on the big three platforms of Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So those are what I think are democratizes my artwork. So even if most of the Filipinos are within the poverty line, they still have access to these platforms. And that's also the reason why troll farms work, because of the accessibility of it. But at the same time, I think it is also important to occupy whatever space that we can occupy. Like for example, a gallery is not accessible to like not normal, the general public in the Philippines. But if we don't use this space, some other right, some other artists with that doesn't have that same political drive, or at the other side of the fence will use that space to their advantage. So for me, occupy all spaces as much.
Really becoming portals for narratives that needed to be delivered, no, and shared. No. In terms of what I do, I collaborate with a lot of other artists, no, different platforms. I work with theater, I work with dance, I work with writers, I work with filmmakers. No. We create content that can deliver the necessary stories that needed to be told. Last September, we did a second run of a play that we worked in Anak Datu, and it discusses about on an entry level, using mythology, using folklore, using storytelling for children, using the narratives of a family, using the narratives of the Muslim South, to introduce the narratives, the struggles of the Muslim Filipinos down south, humanize them, and somehow demystify what the government has always been, trying to picture, that the area is an area of terrorists. And that's basically what's happening right now. We came up with that play when the crisis in the Middle East was happening. For us, this gives us, our viewers, another opportunity to tackle an epic history idea and condense it into something that is more understandable. Our fondness for family drama, for plays, for something, it's because when you engage more than one of the senses, you tend to retain the story more. Sense of sight, sound, feel, you make it more experiential. That's why we do the installations that we do at the University of the Philippines. Anyone can go there, not only the PUP community. Anyone can be a part and experience this work. And once you come out from it, it doesn't give you answers to the questions that are necessary to be answered at times, but it at least gives you a gateway, a portal in which to do further inquiry, to arouse your curiosity, to ask questions. And that's our humble goal for those who experience our work.
Okay, I think I want to just show this is also Toym work, and you will see this same personage in the murales, and he will explain what it's about later on, about if you are curious to know what kind of figures are these, and you will find many other in the mural. I think the importance is also really the recording of history at the time when people want to cancel and recreate new history. This clearly say what has happened in the last 75 years. Now, I admire your optimism that you are still fighting after so many disappointments. And I think for people our age, I think it's indeed sometimes difficult to continue to keep that enthusiasm, still continue to fight while we see it happen over and over and over again, while we believe that things would go better and we were in the right direction, and now since everything we are back to fascism, xenophobia, etc., etc., in Europe as well as in Southeast Asia. So thank you for your optimism, for your resilience, and for your beautiful art. It's not finished, so we have the tour of the exhibition, and then we have Filipino food, pancit, for, of course, to honor our Filipino friends. So please enjoy the tour as well as stop by then for the food after the tour. Yeah.
We just have a 5-minute walkthrough.
Yes,
Yeah.
and if you want to give a donation, don't forget.
Yeah, it's just going to be a 5-minute walkthrough to the art forms. I'll be the one who's going to talk about the mural. And at the end of the mural, then Kevin will share how he reacted to this mural.